Today I'm going to do a story about my very special horse, Red Hot Prince. I was actually lucky enough to ride Charlie when he was a racehorse and I was a jockey, and we ended up winning 2 races together, which was pretty cool. He was pretty tricky to ride. I used to ride him for his exercise as well as in races, and he was always quite a tricky horse to ride at the track, but I loved him from day one. And when he retired, I asked the owner if I could take him home for him to be my equestrian mount, which he very kindly agreed to, and I ended up with Charlie as my own personal horse. When he first came home, he settled in really well, and he seemed to take to life as being a show pony quite quickly. He loved going to the beach, and in the summertime I used to take him with my partner's racehorses to the local horse pool, and he ended up being such a water baby. He loved going to the pools. He would absolutely splash up a storm. We used to put him in first if we had a new young horse who was having his first time swimming. They would quite often follow Charlie in because he just loved swimming so much, and he would dive straight into the pool, and it was really cute. So once I'd done a little work with him, I took him out to a couple of breed shows just in hand to give him some show day exposure, and then we started taking some lessons. His work at home was always quite good. He was a lovely mover. He had a beautiful swinging trot, and he really was such an easy horse to work with at home. I also did a little bit of jumping with him and started schooling him over a few little fences. He definitely had so much ability when it came to jumping, much more so than myself. I'm not the bravest rider when it comes to riding over fences, but Charlie definitely loved it from day one, and he had such good form over a fence, and he was so easy to ride. So because of that, we did a little bit of jumping, and I quite enjoyed jumping Charlie. He was so reliable. I actually got some colours made to match the colours that he used to race in, and I used to feel really cool. I took him to a couple of little one-day events, and I'd love to zoom around a cross-country course wearing the colours that we used to race in together. He never reached his potential in terms of jumping, mainly just because I'm not a very passionate rider over fences, and riding big jumps doesn't really interest me. It sort of scares me a little bit, but I'm sure if he had had a more skillful rider, he definitely would have excelled and gone up the grades in this discipline, because he was quite a lovely scopy horse, and he had so much heart and ability to be a jumper. I also took him to a couple of flat shows, just some hack days, and he did quite well. He was a very handsome, flashy horse. He always turned heads wherever he went with his white socks and his big movement, but he did suffer from some show day competition nerves, which affected our work, and he would be quite tight and tense. He was never naughty at a show, but we did have a little bit of tension when we went out, which affected his work and affected our results a little bit. So I decided to really knuckle down with the flat work, and we took some dressage lessons, and we started going out to some straight dressage shows. And at first, our first few tests together were quite tense and tight, and the score reflected that. But the more we stuck with it, the better that we got. And doing some straight dressage really seemed to help Charlie. Gave me a few methods to get that relaxation out at a show that we used to get at home, and eventually our scores improved, and by the end he was going so beautifully. He was really consistent out at a competition, and we were getting some really super work, and beginning to score quite well up in the 70s. So it was so exciting to finally see the horse that I always knew that he could be really blossom, and and shine when I took him out. I unfortunately lost Charlie. He got colic and he spent a couple of days at the vets and couldn't be saved, which was really tragic for me, as I'd taken him over from being a racehorse all the way through to being my own equestrian mount. But it was a really tough time. But those 5 years that I spent with him after he finished racing were just so special to me. This is actually the last show that I rode him at before I lost him. It was the last time I got to sit on him, and he just went so well this night. It was indoors under lights with music, and he just did the most beautiful workout, and I couldn't have been prouder of him, and it was just such a lovely memory to have of him. So I actually ended up getting him cremated, and I buried him with one of his bar shoes. He never had the best feet, so he used to wear bar shoes, especially welded for him. A rug that he'd won at one of his last competitions, and his nameplate from his stable. And this is the little corner of my arena that Dad helped me make, and we buried Charlie under the little corner, and it's really nice because it's in my arena and I always feel like he's watching on whenever I ride now. My friends actually got me this most beautiful little bracelet made from some of Charlie's tail hair, so that's really, really special memento to have of him. So thank you very much for listening to my story about my very special horse, Red Hot Prince.